I'm Hayley Kay for gVlog. Now, Blackpool's Grand Theatre is celebrating its 125th anniversary, and as part of the celebrations, they've launched their own production company, whose first production is a summer show around the world in 80s days. Now, I'm excited to be joined by the writer and director Ian McFarlane. Ian, start by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I was born in Preston, so just down the road. I grew up in Preston, did all my school and college, etc. I moved to London, I was about 18 or 19, which is a fair few years ago. And I went to drama school and trained professionally in London. And I grew up coming to this theatre, and this is my first job professionally in the North at all. So coming back and being specifically at the Grand, it's fantastic. It's like coming home.
So how did you get the job?
Well, the idea for the theatre to produce in-house, I think, had been a conversation they've been having over a couple of years now, and it's been brewing for a while. And Ruth sort of put the feelers out, and I was recommended by another theatre producer, somebody that had been touring to the theatre.
So you mentioned it was your first job back home, but what other sort of stuff have you worked on?
Lots of comedy. Comedy is my first love. And loads, really varied stuff. So I've done panto. I've done some really nice panto. I did Peter Pan with Henry Winkler, the Fonz.
Lovely.
Yeah, he was my Captain Hook in Richmond. I've done lots of new writing. I wrote a musical called Betwixt that was on the Trafalgar Studios in the West End.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my sort of the first big writing directing gig that I had.
So that leads me quite nicely then to what's your greatest achievement, either personally or professionally? What's the thing you're sort of most proud of?
Probably that. I mean, It was when I was in my third year of drama school. I trained as an actor, and when I was in my third year of drama school, I started writing. I started directing when I went to Newman College in Preston, Cardinal Newman College. And I started directing then. I used to put on shows at Preston Playhouse. We used to do car washes and things to raise money. I think I scratched more cars than I actually was. Sorry, guys, if you're one of those people out there. So I started directing then. And when I was at drama school, I started writing. And I had a friend who wanted to become a theatre producer, and sort of scraped enough money together to put this show on at. There used to be the Theatre Museum in Covent Garden, really lovely museum. It's not actually there anymore, but they had a theatre space in the middle, and we performed there. But it was beg, stealing, borrowing. I mean, I remember one evening spending my last sort of 20 quid. I think it was on elastic and safety pins for a costume. As a student, the last money I had to get this thing on. And then that show, somebody saw it, and it got put on the Fringe, the King's Head Theatre. The King's Head Theatre was the first ever pub theatre in Britain in the 70s. Yeah, it sort of started that pub theatre fringe movement. So it was on there, and then eventually it was on in a different production, so it grew, was on at the Trafalgar Studios in the West End. Okay,
so talking about those very early in your career, but what about sort of your childhood? When was the first time you took to the stage, and can you remember what you performed, whether you were an ensemble or whether it was a character?
I was in the choir for the Naughty Sunbeam, that famous show, the Naughty Sunbeam in primary school. And I think our choir staging was to sit. We were wearing scarves and woolly hats, and we just had to sort of sit and sing and not do anything else. But obviously I decided that I could showbiz that up a little bit, and I would dance and I would conduct. So possibly there. And then I did the whole thing of doing shows in the garden with the neighbours and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, another question then. Besides Around the World in 80s Days, what's your favourite stage show?
I like that besides my own show.
Besides your own show?
Besides what you've written, I think my favourite more recent show, because I've put them in categories. My favourite more recent show is The Producers by Mel Brooks. He's somebody whose work I really admire, and The Producers is a perfect musical comedy in that everything about it works. And it's really funny. So that, I think.
It's laugh out loud.
It really is. It's really laugh out loud funny. And everything about it, the set, the costumes, the lighting. I mean, you'd hope that everything would be perfect, but it doesn't always work out like that. But that production, they just got everything right, and every single gag landed. I mean, he's got such a rich history, Mel Brooks, and he knows what he's doing. But everything had been so honed, and It was a really, really brilliant example of musical comedy in this era.
Yeah, and they make it look so easy.
Yeah,
so
and it's not.
Another question now, we talked about the stuff you like on stage. What about a director? Who do you look up to as a director?
My hero is a chap called Gower Champion, who was an American director, no longer with us. He directed some really, really big famous musicals. He directed the original production of Hello Dolly, which ran for years and years and years and years. He directed the original 42nd Street, and then lesser known things like Mac and Mabel, Bye Bye Birdie. And he'd started out as a performer and became a director in the 50s, 60s. And the first thing that I ever directed was at Preston Playhouse, where we raised the money via cake sales and car washes. And I directed Hello Dolly.
Oh, okay.
And when I eventually saw a professional production of Hello Dolly, which was years later, I remember sort of thinking, oh, I didn't see it like that. That's interesting. And then I read Gower Champion's biography, and the way that he had seen the original show was the way that I had imagined it. So I thought, oh, he's sort of a kindred spirit. So I ended up that way becoming a huge fan of his work, and then sort of devoured all the stuff I could read about him. And his mantra, which I love, was that he never asked an actor to do anything on stage that he hadn't done. So he would go up every staircase, go through every door, pick up every prop before the actors arrived. And he was really well versed in every aspect of the production. He understood music, he understood choreography, and there's a brilliant story actually of him in rehearsals for Hello Dolly. He was in the rehearsal studio with the orchestrator sat next to him, because in the old days the orchestrator used to be in there throughout rehearsals. And he was staging Carol Channing, who was the original Dolly, and he apparently saw what the orchestrator was doing out of the corner of his eye, and he just said, oh, you've got bassoon here. It'd be better if it was piccolo, because she's doing something really light with her hands. His understanding of every single aspect of what makes a musical was extraordinary. So, amazing. A really amazing man. So he's my absolute hero.
Okay, so taking you to the rehearsal room then.
Yes.
If you're in the rehearsal room...
Ideally, that's where I am.
and you call a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, talk me through what you're doing. Typically.
Oh gosh, well, as a director, to be honest with you, you're not really having a break.
I often wondered what you did.
No, there's no break. Now, you as part of the creative team, you have always got a backlog of questions that need answering, to be honest. So as soon as you say, okay, guys, we're going to have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the stage manager will have questions. They might have had emails or phone calls, or there'll be a question about the set, there'll be a question about the schedule, there'll be a question about something like this, can you release an actor tomorrow to have an interview? So really, and this isn't an exaggeration, from the minute you start rehearsal until you open, you eat, sleep and breathe it.
Okay. When you're not in a theatre then, what do you like to do? What are your other hobbies?
I need to be around some greenery. That's good for me, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for the soul.
Good. It is good for the soul. Find a park or some countryside, which is what's fantastic being around here. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully on the days off when I'm up here in the summer, I can go out to the Lake District or something. So that, or there's nothing better than sitting in a pub on a Sunday if it's winter, with a fire and reading a paper. That's nice. That's a good pastime, really.
Okay, briefly you touched on it's full on from rehearsals to opening night. Just if you can, I know it's probably quite difficult, but if you can, just what's the feeling like then when you've written something, you've directed something, or you put your heart and soul into the production? What's the feeling like when you watch that curtain go up on opening night?
On opening night.
What are you feeling? Sick? I genuinely don't know.
It's a really, really strange feeling, because you're really excited, but there's a weird sense there's nothing more you can do. It's, we have previews where you're gauging what works with the audience, and you might take a joke out, you might take a song out, swap it for something else. I've been doing comedy for a long time now, so I've got a pretty good gauge of what's going to work and what's not. But there are things that you change, and then during previews you're still rehearsing during the day as well, so you're fine-tuning. When the show opens, that's when they used to call it the show being frozen. Ethel Merman used to say, call me Mrs. Birdseye, because this show is frozen, because she didn't like changing anything. Ethel Merman is a very famous musical comedy actress. First Lady of Broadway, they called her. Okay. She was in hundreds of musicals in the 40s and 50s. But once it opens on your official opening night, it's the sense that there's nothing more that you can do, really.
It's gone.
And and you just sort of have to sit and think, okay, well, hopefully we're going to get to the end and we're all going to be alive. It's a really weird feeling because you have to sort of sit on your hands. There's nothing you can do.
Okay. Just before we finish then, why should people come and see Around the World in 80s Days? You can sum up why you think they should come along and see the show.
I just think it's going to be joy on stage. What I want is for people to go out with a huge smile on their face and a spring in their step. But it's going to be really, really funny. And if you want to laugh, if you like to laugh and you like to tap your feet to good music, then that's what you're going to get from the show.
Thank you. Well, Ian, it sounds right up my street. Now, if you want to get tickets, head over to our website. That's blackpoolgrand.co.uk or call the box office on 01253 290 190. I've been Hayley Kay for gVlog.